So I really quick wanted to talk about how I made a video and just posted it about my dad's Puritan values and how they shaped his life and also how they interacted with his children and me, and how I inherited a bunch of them without even fucking realizing it. And also I've been thinking a lot about just I don't know, just like I've been slowly discovering stuff that I didn't know was in my subconscious mind. And another one of those things is essentially it's an offshoot of this Puritan value stuff. I think that I was conditioned to believe that meaning is more important than happiness. And I think actually that's a really popular perception, but I don't think it's true. I think that the more I've been thinking about it, the more I think it's actually the opposite. This is a minimizing thing, and it has the same minimizing dynamic where the minimizing thing seems like the smart thing to do unless you compare it against the maximizing thing. And then once you do, you start to realize that the minimizing thing is only something you would do in a desperate situation. It's a worst of all worlds interpretation. And it's only something that would actually make sense to do if you had no abundance and you had no ability to see past your current situation, but also the safety that it represents. Because usually people take that path because they think it is safe. The safety that it represents is an illusion and rounds to zero after usually the shortest unit of time for whatever that thing is. And so this whole meaning versus happiness thing, I think, is one of those things. Most people, I think, are taught explicitly that you should try and find some meaning in life. And here's the thing about this dichotomy. It's the same with all the minimizing dichotomies. Like happiness, you can have meaning and happiness if your goal is to be happy. But you usually, if you are focused on having meaning, then most people assume that those two things are equivalent and opposite. But usually what it means to focus on having meaning is that you are not happy. Usually that's what it means to focus on meaning. And again, coming back to my dad's Puritan values, my dad has this self-sacrifice kink, essentially. He really believes in being self-effacing and demoting himself and putting other people first, putting God first, putting family first, etc. And I think it's one of these false humility bullshit things, because sure, the straightforward idea is that you sacrifice yourself, but usually in the long term, what that means is that all the people that you could have been for if you hadn't sacrificed yourself, you cannot be there for. And so it's really just like you're starving yourself usually of the good things in life, and you're also starving everyone else who depends on you of the good things of life as well. And that's like, so coming back to this meaning versus happiness thing, that is what it is. When you focus on meaning, almost always what you end up having is a deficit of happiness. And it's the same as the linear versus exponential path. It's the same thing as all the other minimizing divides, where when you focus on meaning, it actually the paths with the most meaning are the paths with the least happiness. That's always turns out to be the case. And when you focus on happiness, it's actually the opposite. So it's like, I'm trying my best to put this into words. When you focus on, so what I'm proposing is that actually trying to be happy is the difficult thing to do. And the reason is because you have to choose it every day, and you have to choose it in every circumstance. It's not easy to choose that. Choosing the path of meaning is something that you only have to do and or reaffirm very rarely and occasionally. And also you don't have to do any work usually, because usually the lowest common denominator is something that has meaning. You can claim that you are pursuing meaning. And the problem is that usually pursuing a life of meaning is one of self-demotion. It's a life of self-deprecation, where it's just like, I'm not important. It flaunts itself as a type of humility, but it's not humble. It's a false humility, because really what you're saying is that you don't want to put in the work to be a good person. Generally speaking, that's how it ends up. You don't want to put in the work to be energetic, to do the things that actually make you happy. And in fact, literally usually people who are pursuing meaning, they're afraid of being happy. They're afraid of letting their hair down and actually enjoying life, because they assume, there's an implicit assumption that if they actually let themselves do it, then they are not honoring their commitment to pursue meaning. And so I don't know, it's just like, it's a lot of bullshit. When you pursue happiness as your highest goal, it's the opposite. And actually, here's the thing, is that you can't have happiness without meaning, but you can have meaning without happiness. And so when you pursue meaning as your highest goal, you just live a worse life and you don't even know it. But when you have happiness as your highest goal, then you have to be active, you have to be responsive, you have to be on top of your situation, and you have to also be constantly making the choice to interpret things in a way that is happy. Happiness is a choice, and also it's a continuous choice. You have to make it all the time. It's much more difficult to be happy than it is to have meaning. Actually, it's like with all the minimizing device, it's just like there is no contest. It's a much more difficult thing. It's a much more brave thing to do, to choose happiness. And it also liberates you. It aligns you with the things that you want, and it aligns you with a better life, and it also aligns you with being able to support other people having a better life. And when you choose meaning, you have a fake facade of doing all that stuff, but it's not real. You actually just demote yourself, you disempower yourself, you make it so that whoever depends on you, they also have to demote themselves or disempower themselves. And also usually there's like a superiority about it, where if you believe meaning is the highest goal, then you don't want to be around people who are happy. And so if somebody depends on you and they want to be happy, then usually it's just like they can't be around you. You can't tolerate that. You can't allow it, because it cheapens your sacrifice for meaning. And so I don't know, it's just a really toxic, pervasive ideology, I think, that has really seeped into culture, and I'm becoming aware of it, especially through the lens of my dad. My dad fully 100% believed in all this bullshit. And also just like, I'm working on this other theory about humility, and how humility is actually, I think it's the root of all, I don't know if it is the root of all good perspective, but it's the root of a lot of good perspective. And this is one of those things. A humble person does not disempower themselves, because what it means to be humble is to leave room in your world model for the idea that you might be mistaken about things, which means you can't disempower yourself. If you're going to be humble, you need to empower yourself. Only the people who believe in a false humility actually disempower themselves. And they say they're being humble, but actually they are being the most proud of all, because usually they're saying, I am not going to empower myself, and I'm going to say that's a sacrifice. I'm going to say it's a public good, and then also I'm going to say that I am so important that my public good trumps other people's need for me to have power. Really pernicious. I don't know. I wanted to make a rant, and I ranted, but I am still working on the best way to collect and talk about this stuff, because it's definitely like the direction I'm going in. I'm really excited about it.